EGGPod. I know because I was looking up. That's why I was looking. Why is Crispy looking up there? I'm looking up there to make sure it's running correctly in Streamlabs OBS. Welcome everybody in chat. Welcome for joining us on the EGGPod tonight. We have two very special peeps with us this evening. To start with, we've got a couple of others coming on later. But first of all, Cora, hi. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
And down there in the bottom, we've got Keraan Chetty. Keraan, welcome, man.
Thanks very much.
Cool. So nice to have you on the show, dude.
Yeah, it's good to be here and just hang out and talk some magic. You know what? Not many better things than just hanging out and enjoying magic, right?
Talking some magic. We like the magic. I'm just going to do that so that that's ready to go. Okay. We also got some people in chat already. Leopardstone, greetings. Zoe, greetings. Welcome to chat. Tonight's going to be a real easy conversation for a while, and then we're going to head into the final of Egg 11 between Ryan Lello playing Mono White and Theuns Prinsloo, who's playing Gruul Adventures. High Priest of ASCII, welcome. Joining us here, all the Eggies in chat. Thanks so much. But I think we're also going to run through some numbers that Cora and Zoe have got put together for us from Egg 11. Some really interesting facts, some interesting information about what was the most popular card in this tournament, and what the other big numbers are with regards to decks and cards, etc. for the tournament. Tin Street Trading Company, welcome, Kendra. Bigger Claassen, welcome. But before we do that, I think we're just going to have a little chat with Keraan here and just say, listen, man, we know that you're a big magic man. You're a magic player. You're one of those guys who's been around and done a whole bunch of stuff. So for those people out there watching and tuning in for the show this evening, tell us a little bit about your magic history. When did you start playing this crazy cardboard game?
So my story is kind of interesting. But just over, I'd say it would have been around 99 to 99, give or take. I first saw these cards with, weird images on it. And I'd never been exposed to gaming at all, apart from PlayStation, FIFA, kind of thing. That's what I would play. FIFA, Need for Speed, racing games, whatever. And a relative of mine was at UCT and he picked up this game, this weird game. So I thought, and I saw, why is this grown man playing with these little cards with like pictures on it, And at the time I was in school and I thought it was bizarre. I really thought it was like the weirdest thing ever. And I don't know, I was just curious and I was like, okay, there must be a reason, right? Instead of just dismissing this out of hand, I was like, I said, let me learn it. Let me figure out what it's about. And so Sasha, he built me a deck and he taught me the game. And as most people do when they start to teach you the game, at the time it was, mono green elves with overrun. That's what he built for me. And, that's kind of where it started. It started with mono green elves running into his like white control deck with Majita the Lion. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Majita the Lion, but as a new player, I thought Majita the Lion was the most overpowered thing that has ever existed, and I still, sometimes have nightmares about it today. It basically is a Wrath of God on legs. It destroys everything else on the board. I think you discard cards and you pay 4 mana and you tap it or something like that, and it discards everything. And newbie me was such an idiot. I couldn't figure out how to like pressure this. What's the right amount of creatures to run out, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where Magic started for me about 20 years ago, give or take. And it took a while. It took a while to get it. Let's put it that way.
I think it does for everybody. It takes a while to get it unless you're just one of those people who pick things up. We've got some comments from chat. I think Zoe is referring to when you said, why is this grown man playing with cards? She says, they're not even betting or anything. Tin Street Trading Co. Kendra says, I also started with mono green elves. Laughy. So, I mean, if that's where you started, but then your magic career took a lift off. I mean,
it wasn't, and that's let me put this on. That's a bit of a misconception. Because I was really bad for an exceptionally long period of time, and that's fine. That's how I was. There's a saying, you don't know what you don't know. And like, I had no idea, because again, I wasn't a gamer. I had no idea about all these different concepts. Resource. What is a resource? What is resource management? And ultimately that's what Magic's about, right? It's how you're managing your resources instead of just mindlessly playing out cards. And that's what I used to do. I'm like, oh, Skizik seems great. I like Skizik. Skizik's going into my deck, or whatever. And I just do that and just play things. And if I got lucky, I won a match. If I wasn't lucky, I'd probably lose. And I did a ton of losing for the longest time. It took me a really long time to get Magic. And that's why when I I'm not so active at the whole FNM Saturday Magic scene anymore. But that's what I love seeing when I see some new guy, a new kid, new girl, whatever. And I'm like, wow, this person's so good. They're like infinitely better than me at the same stage. Like, this person's potential is, exponential kind of thing. And I find that really cool, because it took me forever to get decent at Magic, honestly. It wasn't easy for me. It was really hard. And I can't even point to a moment where like something clicked, but it was probably like, I don't know. I think I had a moment like years in, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a relatively smart guy. Why am I so bad at this game? What is going on? What am I doing incorrectly? And I think that's something that like a lot of people don't do. There's a lot of people that are smarter than me, and they get frustrated. My brother started Magic the same time as me. And he was like, oh, this is terrible. I'm not playing this game, because he was losing, right? Like, just like me. And I persevered. He didn't, right? And he's excellent in most spheres of life, academic, sports, whatever. But he couldn't wrap his mind around this challenge. So I don't know. At some point, I started asking like the best. I'm from Durban, so I asked the best guys at the time. And there's guys like Calvin Bosch, Darren Mays, and I'd ask them, guys, like, when we drafted, like, tell me, why is this card in your deck? Why do you think this card is bad in my deck? Why is my mana base? And I just got inquisitive. At some point, I got inquisitive, and I got inquisitive with the right people, And slowly but surely, it started. I started picking up these concepts of how to build decks, how to build mana bases, limited, all these different concepts. And so it took a really long time. So like, I mean, you say this, but like I managed to get better. And at some point, things started going my way, but it is more like, like, so
incremental.
Sort of one of those.
But then
Very
maybe
much so.
when did you desire wanting to do more competitive Magic? Was that more of the process?
Yeah, I guess it is part of it, because like I wanted to do better. I wanted to be one of the guys who'd win like FNM, like at the beginning. That was my goal, right? Like, how do I win my first tournament? And I tell you a story of how I won my first tournament. It's a true story. Two of my very good Magic friends back then, and a guy named Francois and another guy named Nolan in Durban. We used to play at that time. We were playing in a Windermere shopping center. There was a Wizards game store, bookstore. Yeah, you remember it. And we're playing out there. And Francois and Nolan decide it's the final round. They look at the standings, and they're proper, typical Durban stoners at the time, right? They were all young kids, and that's how it was. And they decide, oh no, they're definitely first and second. That's how they calculated the math. They said, let's go have a joint. That was their thing. So they go and do their joint. I win my last round. I'm playing blue-red counterburn. Like, just a terrible deck with Howling Mine and counter spells and burn spells and I don't know, draw and whatever. And I win the round, and they come back and they announce that I won the tournament. And so I won it by default by a couple of stoners, being poor at math. And I won that first tournament. And I must tell you, back then, prize support was incredible, because Wizards of the Coast would sponsor prize support for every tournament. So it wasn't just the TO, whatever the TO and the entry fee, the little bit that went to it, like now. So if you won a little tournament, you might get, I don't know, 10 boosters, 15 boosters, and I'm talking a small tournament. So I won this, and I had all these packs, and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. This is such a good feeling.
Let's keep doing that.
Exactly. Instead of going, whatever, 2, 3, or
I
whatever I
want
was normally
more
doing.
of this. More of this. This is nice.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that was like the springboard. So like it was like, okay, I won this first little tournament. How do I win more of these? And those guys were much better than me at the time. Those two guys, those friends of mine, Nolan and Francois. And so I would play with them, and better opposition only makes you better, right? Like whether it's the people you're hanging out with, the people in the store, and etc. And so and then I'd like win whatever a regionals, and then it would be like, okay, let's play nationals, and then I'd play a nationals, and I'm like, there's some guys that are even better than the guys in Durban. How is this possible? Because in my mind, the guys in Durban were great because they beat me all the time, so they're the best. Yeah.
So kind of interject there because I grew up in Maritzburg and I used to do some of the tournament organizing for Maritzburg. And for us, it was always very much, oh no, we have to go and play with the guys in Durban who are so much scarier and they're just so much better than everyone in Maritzburg. And then occasionally we'd have nationals and all the people from Joburg and Cape Town would come. And it was a really great experience. We hosted one of the nationals at the university in Pietermaritzburg, and
regionals. We
hosted regionals, but we did. Oh no, you're right. It was regionals to get to nationals, and
I won. I remember because I won it. I won it with like mono green.
In the council chambers.
Mono green. I'll never forget stampeding wildebeest, which is like a bad draft uncommon now, and like that was my standard deck. But anyway.
How do we? Sorry, just as a side note, how do we? And my wife keeps making reference to what I'm about to say, but how is it that we as Magic players are able to keep all of this information about so many cards in our heads that if somebody mentions a card that we know, we don't need to see that card, we know what that card does? How is it that we do this? Because a lot of people out there have serious problems remembering stuff, but for some reason, is it because we have to know, because we need to know what our opponents are playing, or that we need to know how the card works with other cards and we need to be able to do it in our heads so that we can plan our next move? How is it that we're able to remember these things, these cards and what they do the way we do?
I would say interest. I think if you're interested in the game, you're much more likely to remember cards like that. And as interest wanes, you're much more likely to just not.
Sure. Okay, well, High Priest says, especially for me, except for Legion's End, because that's the running joke for Crispy, which is the 2 CMC thing. So we'll just keep that there. Although Tin Street Trading Company says it's called PTSD.
PTSD works. Certainly how I remember some cards.
It's interesting. I find it very interesting that we all remember these things as well as we do, although some of us not so much with 2CMC. But that's all good. I got a question from chat here. High Priest of ASCII says, so we'll come to this later. We'll come to that question later. I know what that question is. So let's just moving on from nationals, regionals, etc. You've played internationally. You've done overseas tours to play Magic the Gathering. How has that been? What was that the first time you took that leap and went from, hey, I've been a player in South Africa, I'm now going to go take on the rest of the world? What was that like?
Incredible. So maybe just a step back. So the first time I played internationally was Proto Yokohama 2007. But prior to that, I had the opportunity to play abroad at a number of PDQs where I'd make it to sort of top 8 and then concede in the semifinal or final or whatever the case was, because I didn't have the funds to go, right? I was a university kid back then or whatever, and my folks had no money. There was no way I could afford to go. So, and I think at the time, it was about 3,500 Rand that you'd get towards the plane ticket.
That sounds right.
So if you're going to Japan back then, even it was still like a 10 grand return just for your plane ticket, and there's not, so anyway, so getting there in 2007, I won a PDQ I came to Joburg and I won a PDQ in Joburg and with Zoo, Domain Zoo back then. So it's still a deck now, but it was extended. It was a lot less powerful, but Domain Zoo, I won the tournament and I'm like, cool, now is this tournament. We're going, it's a block PTQ. For those, Block Pro Tour. For those of you that don't know what a Block Pro Tour is, it's exactly what you think it would be, cards from a block only. That was a standard tournament back then, a weird tournament, but cool because it's different. So I go there, and it's my first trip abroad. My first time leaving South Africa. I went to Swaziland. But first time out of the continent, first time in a big international flight across the ocean, and it was incredible. And I'm like, see, it's this culture shock, right? Like Japan couldn't be more culture shocky than anywhere else. Like it's the most crazy place. Everyone looks the same, sort of respectful. There's so many stereotypes, and they're all true, right? It just is what it is, and it's such an amazing place, and you're just taken in by everything going around you, and it was great. And I was prepared. I get there, and I go to bed, and I feel great, and I wake up and I'm like, what a great night's sleep. And then I realized that I'd been asleep for 2 hours, and there's this thing called jet lag that I had no idea about. I had no idea. You hear about these concepts, but you're like, whatever. I'm a young, fit, healthy person. This is not going to get me. I was destroyed. I was absolutely destroyed, and the entire trip, I was a zombie. First time abroad, I didn't know what to do with it, and so unfortunately, my tournament. I want to say, you want to make excuses, but that was my tournament. I was there, but I wasn't there. I went like 2-5 or 2-3 or whatever, and then that was the end of my tournament. So it was an incredible experience, and it was a bit of regret because, as I said, I felt like had I handled and known what to do with the whole jet lag side of things, it could have I would have given me an opportunity at the very least to put up a better showing. But it also showed us the limitations of being a one-man band, so to speak, because you're making assumptions about a metagame, and especially a block now. It's not something that's widely played. So you're drawing inferences on what people are going to play and what they're going to do. Because remember, back then, a set would get released, and very shortly thereafter, the Pro Tour would take place.
Yes.
So you didn't have months and months of preparation. You had to set, go. Let's figure out. Okay, so I think everyone's gonna play. I thought it was gonna be a heavy aggressive because there was a good white aggressive deck out of the block. And so that's what I thought it was gonna be. So I built a Grixis control deck, but anti-creature control deck, if that makes sense, very anti-creatures. Yeah. And the metagame was the opposite. It was Eon Chronicler. Wafo Tapo won the tournament with this heavy, draw go, lots of counters, draining Welks, I think, and all kinds of big, card advantage. And so my deck was poorly positioned, and I had all this jet lag issues. So it showed me that, it's nice, maybe I'm okay, I'm an okay player, but you need those people to bounce ideas off, and, a concept of teams and people to work together to understand, because your idea of what a metagame is can be warped, can be wrong, can be skewed, and I was.
The idea of going in solo seems really bold and a bit crazy now, because obviously I've heard since you've worked with a team later on when you represented South Africa, I'd imagine the difference then must have been starkly different.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. When you the World Magic Cups are my favorite, my favorite Magic events. There's that's wonderful. You're representing your country. At the end of the day, my picture on this Discord thing, you can see it's a picture of me with the flag. It's me, the flag with Kalyan, and I think I'm trying to make sure. I think it was Tariq. I think was that year. Anyway, I think it was the three of us, and so there's this cool thing of hey, I represented my country at something. Mm-hmm. I was good enough for a little bit of time to do that. Okay, and I was, and that's amazing. And that camaraderie and working with people, it's a wonderful experience and very different, as you say. But it also comes with different challenges and different pressures. Mm-hmm. It's not to sound, I don't want to come across as a real jerk here, but You know, when you are, let's say you've been around a long time, and people kind of look to you to say, well, what must we do here? There can also be the standoff thing where people don't want to put forward their ideas, and like want to defer to you and say, okay, so what must we do? What decks are we playing? How are we doing this? And that can, that can spoil not spoil, but it can hurt a little bit because my ideas aren't always right, and sometimes they're quite terrible, to be, quite honest. So there's that element that comes in it, working with a team where you've got maybe a personality that's maybe a bit more experienced than the others. Is that then the others sort of sometimes, if they aren't confident to step forward and say, hey, why don't we try this, or this card, the suggestion of yours is stupid. Let's move on.
That's a really interesting observation that was the one thing that stood out to you as a major drawback, because I wouldn't have imagined it would come up that often. In fact, I wouldn't really have thought of it at all if you hadn't mentioned it.
So I'll give you an example. So 2 years ago at Pro Tour, I was testing with the Frenchies. It was the Frenchies and Eduardo Sachka, now he's a commentator, but I mean, the guy's got three Pro Tour top 8s. And I was testing with them. And like Raf at the time, so Raf Levy was testing this stupid colossal hammer deck, which now is okay. It's okay now in the year 2021, but in that year, in that year, I was on Hogak early. So that was the Hogak Pro Tour. So I was working on Hogak from day one because I recognized that this was the most stupid thing you could ever do. And I'm in this testing house, and it's a testing house, but there's also MTGO going. And every league I'm going 4-0 drop, 4-0 drop, 4-1. Like I'm just smashing people because I don't want the deck to get published. And I'm like, Raf, yeah. And so I play this, then when I'm not playing, Raf jumps on my account, and he's just hemorrhaging tickets because this terrible deck, this is one of the best players of all time, is going like 2-3, 1-4, and I'm like, dude, this is crap. This is a crap idea. And I think the other Frenchies were like, the Frenchies didn't want to say anything because this is a godlike figure. How do you say something? And I'm like, dude, this is a terrible idea. We need to let's do Hogak. This is the thing. And so eventually the whole team played Hogak, right? They listened, but eventually it was just too good to deny. But like, there's an example of like the others were also. This is another example where other like really good pro level players, but maybe didn't want to say, hey, we're wasting time on this idea here. So it does happen.
Yeah, I understand how it could be daunting. It's just I really thought that if you get to that level, you'd probably be confident enough to voice your concerns. But really interesting to hear that. And I love the example with Hogak because that was a nightmare at the time. And I'm glad you got some joy from the card.
I was so disappointed because the Sunday before the Pro Tour, I was hiding that, there were versions of it, but the versions weren't fleshed out that were around. And so I was basically on the money. I had it, and I was, living my best life, so to speak. And then Canister streams the deck, and he streams a version basically very similar to what I was on, and goes 12-0 in the Modern Challenge on MTGO. I mean, including the top 8. So he went like 9-0, and then won 3 more rounds. So went 12-0. And so Monday morning, that's all the pro teams were talking about. Everyone was like, okay, this is the thing. So because of Canister's results, it pushed the field in this direction, and then it pushed the hate up to another level. And the deck was resilient, but when the field is that many Hogak decks, some of the Hogak decks have to lose, So unfortunately, that killed it for us.
If memory served, they kind of cannibalized each other in that event.
Yeah, I mean, like that deck was that event was so dominant. That deck was so dominant in that event that Tron won the event because Tron with 4 Leyline of Void, 4 Leyline of the Void main. So you hear out your Hogak deck and you sit down and your opponent just goes Leyline of the Void, game 1. Cool. You've lost game 1, and now you've got 2 games to play through additional hate because he's bringing in more hate cards out the board, and that's the kind of thing that happened. So yeah.
It's the facial expressions that are getting me because with Cora on one side going like, oh, this is so exciting and everything's great, and Keraan on the bottom going, they killed my deck and I was so sad.
No, well, Keraan's sad that the deck died. I'm sad the deck existed because it was miserable playing against that.
That's all good. Speaking of decks and things, so something else you wanted to say, Keraan?
Oh no, I was just about to say it was just a work of art. Then I played in the Grand Prix because I went. I can't remember what I didn't make day 2 of the Pro Tour. I played in the Grand Prix. Day 2 of the Grand Prix. The guy's playing the opponent. He's playing Eldrazi Tron. He goes game 2. I'm all to 5. He goes Chalice of the Void for 1, and he goes Leyline of the Void. That's his turn 1.
Well,
Force of Vigor, destroy both, and I killed him on turn 3 or 4 or something. Like,
nice.
like
So
that's how bad Kogok was.
that was the only card that I could remember that was the Hogak tech for Leyline. So no, I'm great that I love that you brought that example.
We've got some comments from chat. Leopardstone says, I like block tournaments a lot. Block drafts are fun as well. Tin Street Trading Company says, Colossus Hammer for the win. Leopardstone then goes back saying, Hammer on Fencing Ace with Cigarda's aid on turn 3. Sounds good.
No, we do it on Inkmoth Nexus now.
Oh, I see. Okay, nice. But talking about decks and things, we are tonight closing off Egg 11, which has been the current Egg tournament that's been running for a while. And we luckily have Keraan with us and Cora with us to be able to have a quick chat, if that's okay, about the decks that our 2 finalists are playing. We've got Ryan Lello's playing a mono white brew against Theuns Prinsloo's Gruul Adventures. So I don't know if you guys are keen, but if we just have a little chat through these decks quickly. Maybe we start with the mono white. Cora, you've got some thoughts around what you're looking at, and Keraan, obviously just jump in with whatever thoughts you've got. I'm going to sort of take a back seat because you guys are way better at the whole deck thing than me. So I'll just chirp in with, silly comments every now and then, and I'll try and catch up in terms of visuals for people watching.
Sounds good. So the match is a very interesting one. I'm kind of relieved that we had a lot of Sultile to meta in the tournaments, 3 decks meta to top 8s, but we're seeing Mono White versus Gruul Adventures now. Talk a bit more about the deck breakdown of the tournament later, I think, Crispiwan?
Yeah, sure.
But for now, just focusing on the 2 decks going into the finals. Both very aggressive decks. I anticipate the match not to last incredibly long. I know both players are very careful with their turns and do take quite a good bit of time to make sure they're making the right plays.
Sorry, I was just about to say, Theuns and matches ending quickly don't exist, but
we can be optimistic. I think the last time I played against him was in the finals for another egg tournament, and I bricked on lands in turn 2, and it still took quite a few turns to end the game because I think he thought I was trying to do something sneaky, but no. So
the last major paper tournament we had was the PTQ, and the final was Keraan. It was between you and Theuns, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Nice.
He was playing. Theuns was playing.
Fires of Invention.
Yeah, Fires of Invention.
God.
Cavalier Fires, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, he was playing Fires. I know the video that it was recorded, and he just had the nuts both games. Turn 4, Cavalier, double Cavalier, haste, take 1 million damage. It smashed me. Yeah, it just smashed me. It was incredible.
Okay, so back to tonight. What do we got?
So at face value, we have a mono white deck that is a very aggressive deck. It's probably the kind of fairest deck we have in standard, and that's it's not doing 1 million over the top things like a load of other decks are doing, Ultimatum and so on. Instead, it's doing kind of a very nice aggressive strategy, but with built-in really sweet removal. We have stuff like Giant Killer, which I think will be quite pivotal for the match. It can kill very large creatures.
Sorry?
I think we're having sound issues.
Sounds good on my end.
I understand. Okay, so we won't be switching to the cards.
Oh, we switched to scenes. Okay.
We switched to a scene and we lost the audio. Sorry about that, chat.
So, yeah, no switching to cards. But,
no switching to cards. You all know the cards. We talked about the fact that we can all remember these cards earlier, so visualize them in your minds.
So we have the Skyclave Apparition. That's 3 mana for a 2/2, enters the battlefield, exile something with mana value 4 or less. That's also pivotal because it can take out some very key cards in the matchup. Most of the cards in the Gruul deck are mana value 4 or less. It comes to the downside that if it dies, the Gruul deck will get an Apparition. something like that. I've gone blank on exactly what type the thing is, but
It gets
illusion.
it just gets a
An
token,
illusion.
an illusion, yeah.
Yes. Okay. And it's so cool that an aggressive deck that's a very aggressive white deck, monocolored, with Faceless Haven, which has been such a cool land that the aggressive decks are utilizing, also has access to top tier removal. So I think that makes the matchup very interesting and kind of, in a way, favors the white deck here, just because it comes really well situated against some of the top draws the Gruul deck can do. But the Gruul deck has got one of the most explosive starts in the game, and that's seen with Jaspera Sentinel as the turn 1/2 elf with reach that can tap for another creature and itself for mana, paired with Mugda, which when a dwarf is tapped, you get a treasure. And that's earned the deck the other nickname Gruul Treasures, because you can get a lot of treasures with Mugda and Grimrock Knights, and Goldspan Dragon itself, and then sacrifice into Mugda to fetch a dragon or an artifact card from your deck and tutor it put into play, which works insanely well with Ember Cleave, Great Henge, and Goldspan Dragon itself. I could say a lot more, but I feel like I'm hogging the screen. So, Keraan, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I can see why the white deck could be well positioned. It's weird because, like, in one hand, Bone Crusher Giant's not good because of all the ways the white deck has to protect the creatures. But on the other hand, the white deck still needs to draw all those little pieces, right, to protect it. And so on one hand, like I'm torn between whether the Bone Crusher. I think it might be clutch. It might actually be a clutch piece in the matchup, especially to get rid of whatever apparitions, or I think it could be really important. And like, it's really interesting. That red green deck does put on some big stuff very quickly, and the white deck doesn't have. I mean, it doesn't have a ton of removal. Sure, it's got like giant killers and it's got apparitions, but that's it, right? Like, and the red green deck has a lot of card advantage if left unchecked.
Absolutely.
Edgewell Innkeeper is all-star, and I think that it could be, if you're forced to use you've only got 4 apparitions to get rid of your Edgewell Innkeeper, that could be like the decisive card that really pushes the Gruul deck over the top.
I would be surprised if it comes down to a value match. Obviously, it could. We're talking about 2 extremely experienced players here, but I would predict it's going to be a little more aggressive than that. The white deck snowballs very quickly, and post-board, we're also talking about great glass caskets coming in as removal. And then I think what I forgot to mention, I am potentially the nail in the coffin, but it might not actually happen, is the wonderful tech pairing for mono whites of Elite Spellbinder, which nabs the card out of your hand and makes it cost 2 more, and Draneth Magistrate, which locks out cards that are in zones other than a hand. Against adventures specifically, that means that if the Gruul deck is not very careful and they put a bunch of creatures into adventure and then the Magistrate lands, those creatures are locked away, and you're going to struggle to generate card advantage with the Innkeeper that you would normally have for free.
Yeah, but there's also this weird tension, right? Like it's your typical hate bear type of card, but it's a 1/3 body that in a deck with a fair amount of aggressive creatures, so it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
And so it adds a nice bit of tension, because there are these cards that are aggressive, like Seasoned Hallowblade, and then you've got Raiden, God of the Worthy, which is a 3-mana 2/3, and Draneth Magistrate, which is a 2-mana 1/3, which aren't the most aggressive. So it's kind of a weird deck and a weird jumble of cards, and like I can see it having very aggressive draws, and then I can also see it having kind of terrible sort of disruptive draws that don't put pressure on. And then maybe the Gruul deck can, find a way to get going and, just go over the top of it, because the creatures are just so big and powerful, Be interesting to see.
I do wonder if we're going to have a battle for the skies here with these 2 traditionally kind of, non-flying decks, because they're both splashing into quite big flyers. We have Goldspan on the one side, and on the other side we have Legion Angel, and of course the Elite Spellbinders that I mentioned. So that could be another interesting way that the games might go. Is will we see Goldspans trying to face down Legion Angels?
Before we went on air, Corey, you were talking about, for the Gruul deck, one of the cards that you thought was a good mention was the Seeker's Chariot.
So, yes, I'm not convinced it's essential for this matchup, but I think it's a very interesting inclusion that I'm happy to see Gruul decks adopting. Seeker's Chariot is 3 and a green for an artifact that's legendary, importantly. Enters the battlefield, make 2/2/2 cap tokens. It's got crew for 4, because it's a vehicle. And when it attacks, you can make a copy of a token in play. Note, the token doesn't have to be a cat. You can copy one of the treasures to push Magda over the edge, which is a little neat trick that can be done. I'm not sure if there are many other tokens in the deck. I know there's the 1/1 tokens from Heart's Desire, but I'd imagine that's about it.
Don't
the
know
nice
how
thing
many
about
ones you want to make.
Yeah. So the nice thing about it is that it gives you at least 2, probably 3 bodies if you can crew it, if there's something else that you don't really want to use for some reason or lose for some reason. Perhaps if you're holding a second chariot. So it gives you a lot of fodder to mess around with or to apply pressure with as the situation dictates.
Okay. Some of the sideboard cards that we're talking about off air, I mean, obviously that one. Then also in the Gruul deck, we have the Acroan War. And in the mono white deck, we've got Glorious Protector sitting in the sideboard there as well. What do you guys make of these cards in this matchup? Do you think they're worth? Are they going to work in this? Are we going to see them in this matchup?
I would be pretty convinced we should see the Keraan War. As someone on an adventure deck for this tournament and for Ladder itself, I have a Keraan War's main board, and I find them to be kind of the thing that ends up making or breaking the fights. The problem is those Skyclave apparitions I mentioned. So if they haven't already been used to exile Innkeepers, they are devastating if they turn back a Keraan War. So that is something to watch out for. But if Lello isn't careful, a Keraan War can seriously change a game around.
Sure it can. Okay. So just quickly on that. So I'm going to put you guys on the spot. Looking at those deck lists and knowing the players, Keraan, who's your money on?
I don't know. I think the Gruul deck, even though I just think it's so powerful, and it's with Magda, it's got some potential to have some incredibly powerful draws. I love it that the fact it's got the draw engine of the Innkeeper. I mean, sometimes, as you say, Cora, it could be, it could not go down to attrition, but the fact is the deck has that capability of playing that long game if it needs to, if there's a bit of a stalemate. And then, of course, it just can go over the top with things like Embercleave and Shadow Skull smashing, and I think it's got just various angles of attack. And I think the red-green deck could pull it out, but I think it's not going to be easy, that's for sure.
Cora?
So, bit of background for Comic-Con last year, I played Gruul. I picked it up 2 days before the tournament and ended up winning standard portion of the tournament with it. I love the deck.
That was a great
I
deck.
think the additions with Magda, fantastic. I'm very hyped for the deck. I think on paper, for the arguments that I listed just now, I think mono white is theoretically better. I would not like to be facing down Theuns in this match, though.
It's a very, very good way of not answering the
Hedging
question.
bets. Look, I think I would like to say mono white should win, but I've got a feeling it might be Gruul.
Okay. Zoe says no one knows what the Acroan War does.
It's true. You need to print that on a shirt.
Okay, but let's quickly. We're gonna be joined by our finalists very shortly, and we're gonna head over towards the final in about 15 minutes. But just before we do that, you have some stats for us, Cora, on Egg 11, on cards and decks and things like that. So tell us, what was the most popular card, the most played card in Egg 11?
Well, Zoe actually managed to just mine this information, so thank you very much, Zoe. Would you like to ask chat, excluding Zoe, to guess what the most played card was?
Sure. Okay, go for it, chat. Everyone except Zoe, what was the most played card in Egg 11? And Keraan, because he knows. He was in the discussion earlier. Code Monkey 7 says island. Tin Street Trading Company says island. High Priest of ASCII says mountain.
So we have a kind of correct answer there. The most played card was a snow-covered mountain.
There we go. Snow-covered mountain.
With 114 copies, I believe.
Wow.
I have just...
Icarus says Bone Crusher Giant. We'll come back to you, pal.
114 copies of Snow-Covered Mountain, 70 copies of Fabled Passage, 62 forests. So Island's not even near the top.
No.
And then we finally have the first non-land card, and it is Bone Crusher Giant, as was just called. So
There
very
you
well
go.
done, Icarus.
Welcome, the Chemist. I saw you join us a little bit earlier. Thank you for joining in.
So that very much surprises me that Bone Crusher Giant, red card, and very aggressive decks generally, actually managed to take the top spot of most played card. And I think that shows how dominant it's been in Standard. If you play a 2-drop, you better be willing to lose it to a Bone Crusher.
For sure. Yeah, and it's been for the longest time. Bone Crusher's been an ace card. Really has been. But
And
in
it's good
terms of
enough for
decks...
his,
Sorry, Keraan, what was that?
I was saying it's no surprise. I mean, it's it's showing up really strongly in pioneer, historic, modern. Literally all formats. So it's an all-star. It's an incredible card. It's just
I was going to say
great versatility.
I think it's
Very
just one of the
glad I
most
got my-
solid cards they've printed in a long time.
I'm very glad I got my foil showcase ones. They're beautiful.
Very nice. In terms of decks, we were looking at decks as well, and the most represented deck at Egg 11 was...
Saltire Ultimatum. I think everybody could have called this one because there was just so much hype about the deck before the tournaments, even despite it doing pretty badly in the Worlds match. The championship match, yeah. So that was a bit strange that despite the bad press, people still went with it, I think, because it was the deck they knew and the deck that was most feared. But we were very closely followed, actually. I lied when we were off screen. Quite closely followed by Mono Red. Okay. So we had 5 people playing Mono Red, 7 on Saltire Ultimatum, and 4 on Gruul Adventures, which was seen tonight. But I think the real success story for the tournaments would be Dimir Rogues, because we had only 3 people playing Dimir Rogues. It would probably be the deck I would have told somebody to pick up for the tournament because I think it's very well positioned. And 2 of the 3 people made it to top 8. So Very well done to both of you. Unfortunately, they were both knocked out before our finals, one in the quarterfinals and one in the semis. But I think great testament to the deck and to the pilots. Like, deck is really good, but you have to be really good to play it. That's why I didn't switch to it. I didn't have the reps. So congratulations for doing so well.
Fair enough. But now this mono white thing of Lello's, where did that come from? Is that how many versions of the mono white deck are there? Just the one?
There are 2 in the tournament.
Okay.
So it's Lello and I believe Yolanda was playing the other one. We spoke to her on the stream just a few weeks ago and she told us that she's a great passion for mono white. So
cool.
It was good to see 2 mono white decks in the tournaments. The Gruul decks, as I say, we had 4. I played one early on in the tournament. It's exactly the same list as Theuns' list. So do kind of have a feel for the match a little bit. But I was on Temo Luca, so quite a different showdown than mono white.
Fair enough. Okie dokie. Well, that's cool. That's pretty interesting. Any other interesting factoids, pieces of data that leap out that you think people might be interested in hearing?
So we had Mystical Dispute, which was the most played card in the World Championship. That was second most played card here. So we're not too far off the scale. And I greatly appreciate that. I was playing a bunch of those. And then some of the unusual decks in the tournament, just to kind of do some shout-outs. We had a Saltire Titan Nest, which I was expecting a lot more of. We had a Grixis mid-range deck, which was actually Izzet Dragons splashing black for 1 Valky. And kudos for that, because that is really cool. And then last deck I want to shout out to is Grixis Control with Lutri as the companion.
Oh, wow. The little otter.
Do you know what Lutri does?
The ottery one. The otter.
Yes. Do you know what the otter does?
Copy spells, right?
Copy spells. Do you know what the requirement is to play it?
I can't remember. I can't remember.
All non
I played it a lot in draft. I can't remember.
all non-lands in your deck have to have different names.
Oh,
Right,
wow.
singleton. That's it. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
well, it's
that's
almost
it.
singleton because the lands can be the same. So
Yeah.
when I first saw the list, I was like, oh god, is this Tainted Pact showing up in our standard tournament? But it's Lutri, and really cool to see Lutri being played.
Oh, okay, sorry. Zoe's just put in a fact here. Scorching Dragonfire, 9 in main board, 11 in sideboards. Ox of
a good one.
Agonis. Ox of Agonis, 9 in any main boards, but 24 in sideboards.
I'm so glad Zoe pointed that out because that shows one thing. It shows how scary the rogue matchup is. That
Sure.
so many decks came with Oxes, with Phoenixes. I just use Phoenixes, but many more people turn to Oxes because they're more aggressive, specifically for that one match that everybody dreads because the deck is just that scary.
Sure. I just hate rune crabs. So stay away from me.
Yeah. Yeah, my match against Null was game 1, 2 rune crabs, game 2, 2 rune crabs, game 3, 3 rune
Oh,
crabs.
wonderful. Awesome. Love that.
You think they're good in standard? You should have seen them in draw. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's just mean.
I'm hoping to sleeve up my modern deck potentially for this Friday for the paper qualifier with rune crabs and hedron crabs.
Okay. Alrighty, so I think what we're going to do now is get ourselves... I just want to check if our fellas are in... Things are going to change on the screen, chat. You're going to see some weird stuff happening now because we need to see if we can set up properly for our final. So you may see some stuff you're not used to seeing. But that's okay. We just need to see... Okay, so we've got one of our finalists back in the stream room waiting to rock and roll. We're just waiting for one more. Let me see if I can get a hold of him via here we go. Just sorry to do this. You want to join us? Discord. I'm going to send him to a different stream room. There we go. Hopefully he'll join us shortly. I'll check back there in a second. Oh my gosh, I see a Crispy says so. Yes, well that's me.
I assume you're playing Mull in Modern then, Cora. Have you added those new cards from Modern Horizons?
No. Hey, welcome back.
Thanks.
Go, kids.
Hi, Keraan.
I managed to just pick up the mesmeric orbs finally, so I was like, oh, may as well give it a whirl.
Okay, so alrighty, we're gonna do this quick since we got Theuns back. Keraan, I know you have to jump off at some point here. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for joining us this evening and having a chat with us here on the EGGPod. I'm sure that I know that myself and Cora have enjoyed it greatly, and I really hope the chats enjoyed listening to your stories about Magic and what it was like. And I think particularly what's interesting for me is that over the last couple of weeks we've spoken to a couple of people who have a long history in the game, and what's come out, and I hope that anyone out there like myself who's still trying to pick up the game as best as we can and try and be as good as we can, picks up on the idea that you want to get good, play against good people. Learn what you can from them, pick up those strategies, do it, and don't play silly. Don't play with your mates and say, oh, it's okay, you can miss that trigger, or you can take that back or whatever. Play hard, play proper, learn the game. And I think that's a message that's come through over the last couple of weeks. What was that, Cora?
And ask questions.
And ask questions, absolutely. Ask if you've got something in your deck that's not working, then, why? Why is it not working?
What have I understand,
done?
Exactly what Keraan is saying. I think that was a really wonderful explanation, and I love the nostalgia trip as well. I haven't heard the name Windermere Shopping Centre for I don't know how long. So.
I think if I can just the one thing on this one just to round it off is that to be humble, the thing that frustrates me the most is like at a Magic tournament and you'll hear someone say, "Oh, I was so unlucky." I'm like, okay, maybe that's true, but you do everything in your power to play correctly? How many mistakes did you make during the course of the day that even with the poor luck you had, you could have had different results? And like people like think that they play perfectly, and it's impossible. The game's just too difficult and too complicated.
Sure.
And like everyone's quick to fall back on luck. And sometimes, yeah, sure. Sometimes if you like Theuns, and you just get your fires of invention and your double cavalier draw on turn 4 every game, yeah, sure. Then that's a
Not
bit
every
of luck.
game. I leave that only
by
for
and
the
large,
final.
I mean, only for the finals, yeah. Yeah, like no, but you know what I mean? Like by and large, and then people say, "Oh, I was unlucky," and instead of saying, "How can I improve as a Magic player?" Maybe my mulligans are poor. Maybe my sideboarding is poor. Maybe I don't know. Maybe the lines I'm taking in a matchup are poor. The way I'm approaching it, and like there's just so much more to the game, and there's so much more complexity that people just don't understand. And like, if you think you're playing well, you probably have no clue what the game is about. That's the bottom line, because I can tell you, even when I'm playing like the sort of what I think is like near my ceiling, there's so many times where I'm like, I don't know, I think I made too many mistakes. I chose different lines. I could have done things differently, and so that's what Magic's about. I think just a bit of humility. Be prepared to say I don't know and try and figure things out.
I say I don't know a lot. Just so we're clear.
No, I must say, I also said I didn't know to Cora, and he was very nice to explain to me very clearly. So I appreciate that.
Are you referring to today?
Yes.
Oh no, it's such a pleasure. Thank you for asking. It was good fun going through the deck tech, and I think the group seemed to really enjoy that too.
Yeah, it's not always obvious. Sometimes those decks are like pretty tricky, and you can probably try and figure it out, but sometimes I get stuck, and then it's easier to ask than at least I know, as opposed to feel too dumb to ask, and then I might just never know and actually not grow.
I think it's great having people like yourself who are always winning these tournaments and placing in the finals, asking questions, because it's showing people it's good to ask.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Keraan and I know that even though we are sort of amongst the top, I think, of players, we still make so many mistakes in there. And we still learn, and so so I'm like you said, I rather just be very open to learn, as opposed to be too proud to say I don't know because I'm meant to be too good in this game. I'd rather just say, listen, I don't know, and then I learn, and then I know.
Okay. Ryan should be sending the challenge through to Theuns momentarily.
Nice.
Looks like it's about to happen. Something has... Here, 1, 2.
Very cool. Wait, did they try to cancel the challenge and came back?
No, it looks like it's happening.
Oh.
Alrighty.
Should be a good game. Mono white to start.
Oh, unfortunately we can't see that hand. We can see the Gruul hand.
So this is looking like a pretty decent hand for Gruul, but it is missing a piece. You're missing some kind of early big thing to get that henge down early, or to generate a ton of mana.
Okay, Ryan's got the Elite Spellbinder, he's got the Luminarch Aspirant, he's got the Alseid, and he's got 3 mana to burn, as well as...
It's a really nice fast hand. I think Mono White's got a really nice hand to start with here. I think the Gruul hand is decent, but a bit lacking. It'll be interesting to see if he keeps.
Well, he is taking a long time to think about it, considering his options. He is keeping
Well,
it.
the snatch is untimed, I assume.
I don't see a timer. I will time it.
I don't think it... I think it's meant to be untimed.
Okay.
So we see a turn 1 Alseid is going to get blocked by the Sentinel, but then not actually, because we know that it's going to get pumped. Yeah, there comes the
there's
Aspirant.
Luminarch.
It's an early life gain and aggression in here. Not what Theuns wants to see.
He's got the Magda.
Such a good top deck.
Better lucky than good, hey?
But the question is, do you play the pathway? Because then you might not get double green. I guess you don't really need it because of Sentinel and Magda.
Okay, he won't be able to play the Rimrock Knight, the pump on the Knight.
He can. He can actually throw it down as a creature if he really wants to, but I don't think that's a good idea.
Because he tapped Magda for a token, for a treasure token.
Yeah, and you would get a mana from the Sentinel, which gives you 2 mana total. Cool. Okay, interesting to see this line of play. I guess it's to be very aggressive. You get that Knight attacking, which gives you more treasure in the long run as well. I'm a bit surprised to see that though, because I would have thought the pump would be really useful for Henge, but I guess you're setting up a Henge next turn.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is going to be a turn 3 Henge. Spellbinder's going to take the Henge. It's no longer a turn 3
I was going to say, there isn't really another target for it, is there?
You can take a Smashing, but it's bad because Smashings can still be played as lands for no additional mana cost.
Sure. Also, it just makes more sense to take the Henge right now, I think.
Those Smashings are potentially going to be pretty nasty, though.
Going to be clutch.
Leopardstone. What is Ryan's deck list? It's a mono white list Leopardstone. If you're in the MTG Arena WhatsApp group, it was posted in there by Adam a little earlier.
I'm not sure if it actually was.
Wasn't it?
Oh, sorry, in the 11 WhatsApp group. Yes, sorry, not the main group. Yes.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll post
Apologies.
it into the main group in the meantime.
I appreciate here that Lello is taking quite a while to think about this, because he knows how devastating these Smashings are going to be. Now that he knows they're coming, he can do some damage control by putting the counter from the Aspirant elsewhere this turn. But they're still going to hurt so much. Okay, so it is Henge. So where do
Now,
you
what
put the
does he
counter?
pump?
Because if you put it on the Ulciad, you get in for more damage and lifelink. But if you put on one of the other creatures, those are the 2 creatures that die to the Smashing. But they're almost definitely going to be the targets anyway.
Yeah.
So seeing the counter on the Aspirant here, which is going to mean Theuns has to choose between killing Aspirant or Ulciad. This is an interesting turn of events where we could still see a Henge coming down.
Because he could make the extra mana.
So we can Rimrock Knight now to pump the Rimrock Knights. And then you could attack.
This being able to tap Magda just willy-nilly is fantastic.
It's really, really great. I don't think you get to quite enough mana to cast Henge, but you get so close.
Well, not on this turn. I mean, if he plays one of the Shadow Skulls as a land, he's got it next turn, that's for sure.
If he plays the Shadow Skull as a land, then he's actually got it this turn, I think. Did he not play a land this turn?
He hasn't... No, he did. He played the Hall of Oracles.
Yeah, so he doesn't have it this turn, I don't think, but he gets in a really nice big Smashing, and next turn there's a very easy Henge if he wants it. I don't know if he does. Like, just keeping on Smashing is really good.
So he's going for the Smashing for 3. He's going to kill the Spellbinder and probably the Aspirant, I would imagine.
It is the thing that keeps growing, and he has a known second Smashing in hand.
Yep. Good move, and he's going to get in for 4 damage on the Knight there.
Which gives an extra treasure too.
Yep.
So this is really setting up that Henge next turn.
And I mean, it's what we were discussing pre the match. You know, one of those clutch cards being the Smashing, and it, you know, you can have all the protection spells, but you need the mana to activate them all.
Correct.
Oh, unless it was Selfless Savior. But absolutely, you're the one that
Sure.
called Smashing being clutch, and it has been absolutely pivotal to this match.
So we've got a Seasoned Hellblade and a Giant Killer sitting in Ryan's hand.
Again, though, if we had been able to answer the Magda early, the deck would not have been able to explode like it is.
Sure.
Yeah, and to the point of Apparition being the only way to deal with Magda, right? Like, so, yeah.
You think he keeps? Does he hold up those other 2 cards? Does he play the
So,
Seasoned Hello Blade? Does he hold on to Faceless Haven?
you have the option of going very aggressive and Faceless Haven attacking, which can keep up mana for sacking Alseid, but not really having a target to do so, which you can do to just fizzle spells. I don't know about keeping up those other cards. I don't know if you want to Giant Killer this turn. Okay, so it is going to be Faceless Haven. Just get in for the extra damage. Try to race because the Rimrock Knights can't actually block.
Sure.
And you don't want to block with the Sentinel or Magda.
And you
Also
are
bearing in
gaining
mind
life
this-
off of the Elsaid, so...
Bearing in mind the Shadow Skull smashing in hand, I think Lello doesn't want to commit anything that's going to be another casualty.
Sure. But we're pretty much... I mean... What are the odds of the Henge coming down here?
I'm not actually sure because it would also mean that you would tap out to do so.
Yeah.
That said, I think it's going to mitigate 2 damage a turn. As long as Lello doesn't have an extremely explosive play, you should be fine. And that is probably how you're going to rally this game and turn it around. Okay, so we're going for a slightly more aggressive attack here to potentially Rimrock Knights first here, get the extra damage in, and then throw down the Henge with the treasure tokens, leaving the Sentinel up to block, or potentially even pump it with Hall of Oracles.
Oh,
That's
pumping
really
with-
cool.
Pumping with the Knights is also kind of free, right? Like, I'm a little confused as to why you didn't pump.
Yeah,
Pump with
I
the-
actually don't know. I would have imagined the play would be to Rimrock Knight, the other Rimrock Knight, Boulder Rush the Rimrock Knights, which reduces the cost of Henge and gives you 1 extra mana to play with afterwards.
Yeah, it could just be that he missed it. He was fixated on, playing his big bomb and just
Yeah,
got distracted.
I think that was it because it would have been nice to use the 1 extra land, the Hall of Oracles, to pump the Sentinel as a blocker. But unfortunately, we have missed that chip.
Oh, there's the Henge.
Unfortunately, the Mono White deck doesn't really have an answer for Henge, I don't think.
Apparition, isn't
It
it?
can't, no, it has to be mana value 4 or less.
Oh, is it? Oh, well,
Yeah. So Apparition has some inherent flaws, but they don't come up too often.
I'm adding great value, yo.
This
I
is a
see
very
you've got
intriguing
double-
match at the moment, I must say. I'm sort of sitting here going, not quite sure what the next play is, if you know what I mean.
I think the play has to be to swing in again.
With the Faceless Haven as well?
Yeah. And you just have to hope that the Great Henge is going to brick on drawing creatures. Potentially even also throwing down one of those giant killers or the Seasoned Tallow Blade post-combat. Just
Wouldn't you
be
wanna-
as aggressive as you possibly can here because the Henge is going to snowball the inside of this game.
Yeah, I mean, the
And it's-
Henge just has great value.
This is where the pump would have been so nice to block that Alseid.
Sure.
Because if you take this hit, you're getting dangerously low. But Mono White might struggle with the reach.
No blocks.
Okay.
Going to 4.
No fear.
Giant Killer coming down.
Interesting that we see a Giant Killer and not the Seasoned Tallow Blade.
Unless the Giant Killer is there just to be a chump.
So we've got interesting stuff here where Theuns could smashing both creatures, but that won't work because of the Alseid.
Yeah.
It does, however, make it a lot less likely that he would die.
Which is obviously something to consider.
It has its merits.
What was it Kendra said in one of our commander sessions was the best kind of removal is player removal?
Yeah, it's true. I like this play here because you're keeping up enough mana to bluff that you might also have a stomp or something. So you have to choose now if you're going to sack that Elsiad, and you have to guess whether there's going to be a stomp or something in response. Not that you have many options, you kind of have to sack and give proc red here.
Sure.
Yeah, this also means that Elsiad's going to be a great blocker this turn. Sorry, not Elsiad, Giant Killer.
Giant Killer, yeah, sure. So he says, the less likely I am to die, the happier I am.
This is such an interesting play, though, because now in Theuns' position, yeah, you could drop that Rimrock Knights and do a Boulder Rush if you really want to, but you're potentially tapping your blockers to do so, or you could use the Hall and that taps out all your other mana.
Yeah.
It looks like it's going to be Hall. Card draw.
Oof.
There's our Innkeeper. So it is, yeah, quickly the card draw is coming into effect with the Great Henge, so I stand corrected there as well, Keraan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious. I would have thought that the play would have been to play the Rimrock Knight first, see what you're drawn before doing the smashing. I just don't see the downside to doing that.
Yeah.
You know, opens up more options, possibly more lines. Like you said, maybe you would have got the, you know, if you had a Bone Crusher, it changes the dynamic.
But he didn't, so I don't think there's any other out for that unless he's hoping for a misplay.
Why is he?
Because he's got another
So-
Magda in hand.
Yeah, I was sacrificing, potentially offering a trade. I don't know if that's the right call though, because that means you're going to have to block with Innkeeper potentially. It's very risky, but kind of cool.
It's pulling up a lot of treasure.
The life gain from that Elsiad though just buffered Lello's life so much.
Sure, he can happily trade with the knight, or, I mean, he may, if he's savvy, he might think if he, you know, trades the Magda, there's another Magda waiting.
He's not trading though, because that's proc red. So
This is true. So he
I
just
think
gets
it's a free
kill.
block on the Rimrock Knights, I would say here.
Yeah.
Yeah, clearly, I think maybe Theuns is just, he's all in to win, try and win really quickly and
Yeah.
try and get Ember Cleave out next turn.
Oof.
Would you have done that the other way?
Well, obviously we have the extra knowledge that there is a Magda waiting in the wings, and I can't say how much that would have influenced my play, but he would certainly have been in a much worse position if Ryan had blocked differently.
Yeah. Yo.
And these draws have been fantastic. 1-drop, 2-drop, 1-drop.
Yeah, and the Henge is just proving its value once again. And Ryan
So there's only-
drew a land, he just drew another snow-covered plains.
There's only one Henge in that deck, just by the way.
But of course.
So we had a really good line to tap down the only blocker, which was Innkeeper, and then swing in with the Festus Haven again. But that's gone because now there's a massive board.
Yeah, the board's gone quite wide. Big enough to block the Haven, that's for sure. So now the Haven becomes a defensive tool rather than an aggressive tool.
I'm not even sure about that because it's facing down 4 1s and 5 2s.
Sure.
I believe we've entered what's known as the scoop phase.
Yeah. And unfortunately, like there's some wiggle room where the the Hallow Blade potentially means you can have multiple blockers. Okay, I'm wrong.
Okay.
Oh, we're just dumping everything. But we also have no cards in hand, so
Oh,
that Hallow
jeez,
Blade is
like-
liable to die. Little bit of a non-bow here with the Chariots and Great Henge.
This board is just getting way too wide for Ryan, I think.
Yeah. It's the cat card that I was saying, like, oh, this makes 3 bodies, and the Rimrock Knight being able to crew it by itself is
Yeah.
insane because you get a treasure for doing so. The Rimrock Knight can functionally block. Apparently, we're not interested in doing that, but it is a possibility.
I think Keraan was right. I think Theuns is pushing very hard to be as aggressive as possible and get this win in.
I'm not sure about that because you have Magda, you have a Sentinel, you have Chariots. You're generating at least 2 treasures a turn. You just need 5 to go off and get a cleave and win the game with that.
Sure.
Yeah. It's not personally. It's not how I would play. I would have played the match, but hey, it's working for him. So
Absolutely. Putting the pressure on it is always a valid tactic. It's an interesting trade. So
Well,
we've lost the one creature that has sufficient power to stop most of the other creatures on the board.
And
it seems bizarre.
He drew another Faceless Heaven. We'll see the concede.
Oh, okay.
So the draw's definitely not
Pretty
going
quick.
Ryan's favor there.
So I'd anticipate a Crone will come in here, but not sure about that. There's a lot that you can bring into this match. I would also like to see a Blazing Volley put in, but I don't know if we will. I'm seeing Masked Vandal,
Why would
Gargarots, a Crone War.
Interesting.
Blazing Volley!
Why are we seeing the Masked Vandal, do you think? I didn't see too many...
So we're seeing it for the
Targets.
glass caskets, actually, I assume. So he's
Oh, yeah, okay,
preemptively
so-
boarding against Lello's board.
Okay.
But also,
Alright.
they also do blow up Ulcead of Life's Bounty and Vulcan Mirror, if Vulcan Mirror is ever played.
Correct. Enchantment creature, yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
all of the characters.
a little better than you'd think, actually.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
It's a very strong card. Sorry, you were saying?
No, I was saying I'm very curious to see how this this plays out, but
I see
Rather-
Lello's finished sideboarding already. I don't know what he put in though.
No, unfortunately, we don't get to see that view.
I'm
We're not
curious.
quite there yet in terms of being able to see everybody's all screen all the time.
So what are we cutting? We're cutting dragons. That's pretty interesting. So the Gruul deck's just saying, I'm not going to win in the sky. It's not going to happen. Jeez. I mean, you've got the combo, but also you can't play it.
Ooh.
Okay. I like this
So
hand.
Ryan is ditching a Maul of the Skyclaves. He's got
Oh,
Legion
interesting.
Angel, Glass Casket, Giant Killer, and 3 lands.
That's an interesting ditch because I do like the Maul quite a lot in this matchup.
Yeah, anything. The evasion and first strike is fantastic.
I suppose it's quite difficult to reliably attach to the creature though, given the amount of hate that Theuns has brought in.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
So are we going to see an Innkeeper here? Because normally you're meant to hold Innkeepers, but we know Mono White has very little removal. Well, for small creatures anyway.
The Glass Casket could... I mean, I don't know if it's a valid... I mean, it is a valid
It is.
target, but is it a good target right now?
I think it absolutely is. The question is, has Theuns considered that? Is the Masked Vandal going to come
Oh,
fairly
geez.
soon? Okay, we're not even doing that. Must say, I'm surprised.
That we didn't see the Glass Casket?
Yeah, I guess maybe Lello's taken the approach I originally had, which is very unlikely that the drawing cards is going to matter too much in this match.
Sure.
But I think that Lello is also lacking the aggression to actually make that statement this time.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you pass on your second turn, like you're not ending the game quickly. So
Yeah.
by default, I mean, the inference is that the long game is in play, which would mean that the innkeeper needs to be killed on the spot.
Dealt with. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is a little confusing to me, but I see another land was drawn, so probably going to see that casket, maybe? Or is it maybe just going to deal with the big creatures?
Also, Lello doesn't know that. I mean, Theuns has got 2 bone crushers, 2 stomps ready to rock.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But
The cheek, can you believe it?
the thing is that the adventures deck has got 12 adventure creatures main board, so you just assume the innkeeper is going to start rolling in card advantage soon.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we. Oh, again, not playing the glass casket.
Okay, it's interesting.
End of his turn, death to the giant killer.
The giant killed the giant killer.
Correct. And now the giant is going to draw a card. But hold on, the glass casket hits the bone crusher too.
It can, but now there is in a position where he probably wants to drop that Legion Angel,
Looks like he's
which
going
is
to do that
not
first.
going to line up well with that Ember Cleave.
Oh dear.
So this game, the Gruul Adventures deck has done kind of just a traditional, I am Gruul, I have Innkeeper, I have Stomp, Bone Crusher, and Cleave.
Yeah. Believe the cleave.
Unfortunately, if you do want to cleave this turn, you have to attack with Innkeeper. Okay, so it's clearly not going to be that because we didn't shock in the land first. Bolt in the land first.
Yeah, I mean, he can just get a chariot in play, which is wonderful. I think Theuns is so far ahead in this game. I mean, next turn you've got Ember Cleave coming down.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. They're pretty massive board to support it as well.
Sure. A selfless savior in hand for Ryan, though. Not sure how
Okay.
much of a difference that's going to make.
Means we have a lot of protection, I guess, but there's the casket finally.
Yeah, I must say I was expecting that casket earlier.
By the way, that casket has a fox on it. Just saying.
What does the fox say?
Says many things. Okay. Is the angel going to attack? Wait, does this have... This one doesn't have vigilance, right? I
No,
forget.
no vigilance.
No.
No attack.
Okay, so we're trying to just make a nice immortal blocker that's just going to hold the line. Unfortunately, that doesn't look like it's going to end too well.
Yeah, I'm envisioning a cleave here.
The problem... I guess there isn't really a problem with Cleave. The chariot could still die, but it's going to do so much damage and repopulate cats and just do a lot.
It's going to do so much damage and repopulate cats.
Yeah. That's great.
Well, I mean,
Yes. So this way you have to just attack with the chariots.
Yes.
So you don't get any other spells this turn.
now Lello's must suspect.
Yeah. I think you see 5 mana up, you see 1 creature attacking you. Ooh. And unfortunately, if you blocked a little differently, you could have actually killed the chariot here. So if you blocked with everything, gave the one indestructible and the other one protection.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, sorry.
No, it doesn't work.
Lies.
No.
It lies, yeah.
Yeah,
You
it's
can't
still
keep them
the
all
first
alive
strike
for the
does its
first
thing.
strike.
Yeah, this game was over. I mean, it just, yeah. I don't think Ryan's draw was particularly great, and Theuns was just a little too aggressive.
Yep. Yeah, we didn't see any really early game aggression from the white side.
Sure.
It was all
Yeah.
on this one
That is
Legion Angel.
big damage.
Okay, sorry, I need to run. I just realized it's 20 to 10. Bye bye.
Kieran, thanks so much,
Cheers.
man.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Just putting up a wall of angels, though. But I'm not sure. If it's...
And-
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Theuns' draws have just been fantastic.
Mm.
So does he crew the chariot
think-
and then cleave
is
on
this
the
lethal?
chariot?
This could potentially be lethal if you just do that and then stomp.
Yeah. I keep wanting to push the next button, but it's not my screen.
Yeah. So I'd hope the play we see here is bolt in a land for additional mana, drop the Sentinel, crew with Innkeeper, Sentinel, and a cat, equip Cleave, and then attack and stomp post combat.
Yes. But
We're not seeing that
not
play.
seeing that
Wait,
happen.
no. It might. It just might be lacking the Sentinel, which is perfectly valid. Gives you.
Because you can
Size
still
is
play the
more-
Sentinel now.
Yeah, I think he's not going to go for it though. I think it's just going to be Cleave on Chariot, keeping up mana for Bone Crusher. Okay, so making the mana out because auto tap, I wanted to tap double red.
Yep.
So attacking for functionally 15, and Lello is on functionally 15 if everything attacks.
Yeah.
Let's see, that doesn't seem to be what's happening. Innkeeper's being held back. Little surprised by this,
Okay, making it.
but it should still be lethal.
Kimmy says, GG, well done to both on a good tournament.
Oh, I don't like that block.
Oof.
I get maybe blocking both angels to the chariot and then sacking the Alseid,
To
blocking the
protect one
Alseid
of
to the
them?
cats and sacking the Alseid that way.
Yeah.
But as it stands,
This doesn't do much
this
good,
is
I'm afraid.
lethal by itself already. Like no stomp needed.
Okay, he's taken away the block on the cat.
Oh, you know what? The stomp is actually going to nullify the protections, prevent damage clause. Pretty great.
Explain that?
So stomp has a lesser known line of text in it that
Damage
says
can't be
damage
prevented.
can't be prevented this turn, and protection works by preventing damage. Okay,
Sure.
so we are seeing the block that I was hoping for. Um,
No
don't
one knows
think
what
it's enough.
Stomp does. Sorry. There we
So
go.
there's the stomp. So damage cannot be prevented this turn, which means that Alseid is saving nothing. And unfortunately, because the Innkeeper didn't attack, it's not lethal, I don't believe.
Oi.
Not sure if Lello knew. I guess you have to sack anyway, probably. No, you don't. In fact, it would have been better if he didn't sack after knowing that damage wouldn't be prevented, because he would have gained 1 life. But yeah. So unfortunately, that was slightly mislethal there for not attacking with Innkeeper or playing the Sentinel out first. But still, a turn you're not going to recover from.
Yeah, I'm afraid this one is all over, bar the concession or the explosion of face.
Explosions in a Stoic.
You know what I mean.
We've got to see a cat card wielding an Embercleave. We should be happy.
It's the most vicious cat in history.
Hmm.
Why does Zoe want to know if anyone in chat can draw? Code Monkey, never noticed that line on Bone Crusher. Smarter every day. And there's the concession. It's all over. Cora's back with us. I'm back with us. We got 2
Hello,
fellas with
guys.
us. GG's, guys.
Well played.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I even made some mistakes as well. I felt like I made the one time I made a mistake in game 1 where I wanted to play the hinge. I could have pumped my guy with my dwarf. And
We
that
were
would have
wondering
made
about
me-
that.
Yeah, if I'd pumped him with my dwarf, it would have left me with 1 red mana open because it would have been too cheap. So I would have had red. So I could have pumped, deal 2 extra damage, and cast my hinge and cast the dwarf. So that was one mistake I made that game. And in game 2, I made a mistake in terms of I forgot about the damage can't be prevented, but I don't think it matters.
I thought you planned on that.
Yeah, no. The last time I planned on it, but the one before I actually forgot. But then in the last turn I remembered, and that's why I shot him to the face. Yeah.
Just Lello's, I mean, if you're there, if you can hear us, unfortunate draws didn't pull what you were looking for.
Yeah.
Okay,
But lacking in aggro in that game too, unfortunately.
Can't hear
Yeah,
Ryan
I
right
thought
now.
it was quite a slow game. Yeah, I'm playing the 1-2 on game 1.
Sorry,
Turn
guys,
1. I think.
struggling to
Ryan,
hear
are you there?
Ryan. No, he is there. Even before the game, we were having some audio issues with Ryan. I'm
dear.
pretty sure he can hear us. I'm hoping he can join us pretty soon. Ryan, not sure what's going on there, buddy, but you seem to be struggling. Hey, we've got this whole weird thing going on where
Ryan,
people are
maybe
seeing the
try
wrong
and
stuff.
unplug your
There we go.
earphones.
We're back now. oh, Ryan left and came back. Ryan, you there?
He's trying to
He's trying to.
have a voice.
Hello.
Well, and just so you know, it
Hello.
wasn't me. I didn't mute
there-
him.
No, I
Ooh,
think
Ryan, we hear you.
my mic
There we go.
partly unplugged and thus was not delivering audio.
Unfortunate with your draws there, Ryan.
Flip, I can't even remember what I drew. I think game 1, it was just a bit unfortunate to see 2 Shadow Skull smashings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a
was
long
like-
pause when you were looking at those.
Yeah, I was like, oh no. Like, I was trying to do calculations in my head. Is there any way, like,
The
I
save
can
achievement.
have the Luminarch Aspirin counter,
Yeah.
like, save, like, 2 of my creatures, but it was not possible.
Yeah.
So then at that stage, I was like, yeah, I might as well just take Henge. My board's dying anyway.
Yeah.
Probably won't kill the El Said, so I can use that as protection for the next one. So that I took the Henge, but the game just played out. Magda and
Yeah.
Sentinel just give so much mana.
You took some good lines there. Like you took some hyper aggressive approaches going in with the Faceless Haven again and again.
Yeah.
And
The reason I
trying
did that, like I did that because me and Rashawn actually practiced, like we ran a couple matchups, matches before this, and I felt like the Season Hollow Blade just loses a lot of value, as the game goes on, and I would have emptied my hand a lot, so I'm not really giving it indestructible. So I thought, let me just get aggressive rather than dump, my hand.
Yeah. I thought it was a
Yeah.
really cool play. It almost paid off because when you were doing that, Theuns was sitting with just a Rimrock Knight in hand. And it was looking a bit miserable his side, actually, as his life points got lower and lower. Theuns, you were playing very aggressively yourself. You were leaving up nothing to block, just boldly taking hits to land that henge, which did turn the game around. But you had some fantastic draws off of it. You went Magda into Magda into Innkeeper. It was very impressive. You had.
Did you see when I attacked with the Magda and the Rimrock? I was hoping you blocked the Magna.
Yes, we were all hoping. Well, I was hoping otherwise because it would have been
the other one in hand.
I wanted to see would you have dropped the second Magda if you hadn't blocked it?
If you hadn't, I would have dropped the second Magna either way, just to keep on drawing. I would have, but and to also have the blocker, just in case I needed the blocker.
Yes.
So I would have definitely blocked it either way.
Cool. I was very interested to see that. I wanted to see how it would play out. So I felt cheated when it didn't happen, and then it's nice to hear afterwards what would have gone on.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I was like imagining what Ryan thought when he saw my hand with the henge and the 2 Shatter Skulls. And I was like thinking maybe it was better for him at that stage to potentially take the Shatter Skull, because wouldn't it make both of them more expensive, or would it just make the one more expensive?
Just the one, and you can play it as a land for free anyway.
Yeah, so you can still use it as a land. So I'm not really doing anything. I'm just forcing your one Shatter Skull to be a land. That's pretty much
it. And the land side doesn't get taxed at all. So it's it felt like it had to be hinged, but it was really unfortunate that it had to be hinged because the Shatter Skulls came in so clutch. And it's what Keraan was actually saying on stream before we started the match, that he thought the match would come down to Shatter Skull smashing. I said Magda. So, yeah.
Well, I think it was a combination of both, but that's funny enough. That's why in game 2 I sided out one Magda, because the thing is, even in game 1, I felt my Magda. I was like running him into a wall basically just to cast my other one, and since he doesn't have lots of removal, I felt I was going to most likely sit with a Magda in play and one in hand, and I don't want to have that scenario. So I was I had like a flexi slot. I had to either drop a Magna or drop a dragon, but the reason why I was considering dropping a dragon because he's got the Giant Slayers, but then I thought I still want to have lots of Giant Slayer targets, like at least 4 Laststruck Beasts, 2 Gorgonovs, at least a dragon. I just wanted to make sure I didn't because I wanted to limit my 4 power creatures just so that less targets for Giant Slayer, but at the other hand I also wanted my targets to stick just so that my one of them to stick so that I can play the Henge. And so I kept one Henge and one L.
It was a bit surprising to see the Gargoths come in, but the dragons leave. But obviously that's because angels make attacking in the sky a bit awkward. The extra mana, you don't need so much with the dragon. And the Gargoth, if it stays, the trample and the vigilance is just going to win you the game if Brian doesn't have the giant killer.
Yeah. Exactly, but I was thinking with the dragon you attack, but then you leave yourself vulnerable to a counter. With the Gargoyle, if you can attack, you can get card advantage, and you still have a blocker, and you can potentially burn away 1 or 2 blockers. And so I just felt that the Gargoyle is just better from being a defensive point of view, because I felt Mono White was the more aggressive deck, so I wanted to put more defensive creatures in as opposed to aggressive creatures. That's why I've sat with 1 cleave just so that I can fetch it or draw it or fetch it. The same with the henge, draw it or fetch it. And I left 1 dragon to same story, draw it or fetch it. So that was my logic. I didn't want to go too aggro. I wanted to bring all my removal, everything I can to slow this game down, because I knew I was the deck with the card advantage. So if the game goes long, my card advantage will win me the game.
So this was another thing we brought up on the talk just before we started the match, that I said I didn't think Innkeeper would play a big role. I didn't think you'd be able to slow down Mono White enough for the card advantage to matter. You landed great henge really early on in game 1, turned the game around completely. Game 2, an Innkeeper sat unchecked on the board with multiple adventure creatures coming down, and it just...
On that,
you proved me completely wrong. The Mono White deck just unfortunately lacked that punch that we've come to expect from the archetype.
just on that point, Cora, Ryan, you had the glass casket in your hand in game 2 for quite a while before you chose to play it. Was there a reason you didn't want to take out that Edgewall Innkeeper?
Yeah, I think obviously it can draw like a card or two, but I felt like I needed that to remove a bigger blocker, like a Lovestruck Beast, or maybe if there was a turn 2 Magda, that would be a good target. Even Terrari Sentinel is like something you consider removing because it's a 1/2 that just blocks everything all day, and it has reach to even block.
Sure.
Your Elite Spellbinder. And and the Angels. So I was just hoping for a better target, but it kind of just sat in my hand. I was hoping to just draw something I could play, during the earlier turns and kind of just save that glass casket for later, but it just didn't work out that way. I mulliganed that game. My opening hand was, I think, Giant Killer, Elite Spellbinder, lands, but I had a Faceless Haven. Maybe that hand was better. Probably in retrospect, I think that hand was probably a better keep. But mulligan, it was a okay hand, but just not as aggressive as I would have liked to be.
Yeah.
And then just there was no target early for my glass casket, so.
I also had to mulligan game.
You also did.
First
Yeah.
hand.
That was a funny hand because you had like the perfect hand, except it had one land and it was colorless.
Yeah, it was gonna be perfect if that land wasn't there. Like I have one colorless land in my deck. Yeah, that's the one I get. I'm like, really?
So Boulder Elf has just joined us in chat saying, a little late, what did I miss? Well, Boulder Elf, you missed everything. You missed the chat with Keraan, you missed the EGG 11 final, you've missed everything. But it's okay, because we'll drop this onto YouTube and you can watch it again sometime this week.
Well, we can say that we have the first person to win 3 titles now, I believe.
Correct.
Is that correct? Congratulations, Theuns.
I've sort of
Congratulations,
got
Theuns.
like I wanted to win so that I could get like 3 first places now. I've got 2 second places, 1 third place. And then, I didn't play in 2 of them. So I feel that sort of, I wanted the 3-2-1 type of like a little triangle.
We'll get you a loyalty card.
Yeah, we'll get you a loyalty card. That'll be great. But anyway, guys, I just want to again say thanks very much for taking part in EGG 11. For everybody who took part, thanks so much for playing. We are going to take a break from the EGG tournaments for a little while. We're focusing very much on the National Paper Series right now. So for those of you who are not as yet playing in your qualifiers, get out there, get your decks together, go play some Magic, and we'll see you in September for the grand finals. At the Nexus. In the meantime, though, just to both our players, Ryan, hard luck on the draws there, but congratulations on making it all the way to the final, dude, and well played. Really cool deck as well. I think people have enjoyed watching what it's been doing. And Theuns, to you, congratulations again on your win. Really good stuff. Always good to see you playing a fun deck, especially in that Gruul is great.
I actually saw Adam playing it, and I actually liked Adam's deck a little bit more because he had the Snakeskin Veils in the side.
Yeah,
I just took a deck straight from like MTG Goldfish. I thought that one's like it's the list. Let's see who's the list. But in hindsight, I would have liked to have Snakeskin Veils, and I would have liked to have the Animals Advocate or whatever, the Creature Advocate, the Planeswalker, because I like in the match against Mono White, that Planeswalker would have been fantastic to drop like 3/3 reach dudes the whole time. It would have been like MVP. So I'm sort of upset when I realized I don't have that card against Mono White. I'm like, why? And it's good against a lot of decks.
You know what to do for the ladder going forward. Vivian Monsters Advocate is a very strong card.
Yeah.
Can we talk about, I guess if we have time, the winning play? Because I was, so I double blocked with the Angel, and I was like, I can give pro green and, get this Chariot off the board, with the Embercleave, through the Embercleave. But it took a while to click afterwards that after my creature died, I'm like, oh crap, what happened? Like, is this a glitch or whatever? But it's like that hidden text on Bone Crusher Giants. Like
we did dissect that in chat before it happened.
Okay.
So we saw the disaster coming, And
no.
unfortunately, even with the pro green, if the damage had been prevented successfully, it still would have resulted in your other angel dying and you not removing the cat cards. So it ended up being a really unfortunate pairing with the Bone Crusher and the proc at the same time.
Sure.
No, but I think if the proc green didn't, if the proc green worked, because he arranged it in the order, so I was going to hit the proc green one first, right?
Yeah. So the ordering happens before I sack the thing.
Yes.
So I could see which
you
order.
didn't give him the chance to, because you're very rude. You stomped before the sack even happened.
Yeah, I was sort of telling.
He was
I knew it wasn't going to matter
what you did. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you did. Like, yeah. So obviously the play was okay. I can double block. You know, Theuns has to arrange blockers first before damage. Then I'll have priority again to give pro green to the first blocker.
Yeah.
But then there was a bone crusher.
Then you stomped your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So I actually saw that play when you see all these. I remember seeing humans like modern or something. Humans playing as mono red, and then proc red. Humans dropped that like white guy that says proc red, and then I could just see like, okay, now this guy's probably going to win with humans because he's got two of those proc red guys. So then he attacks the guy with the proc red dudes, block. And he just shoots, stomp the guy to the face, and there dies the proc red dudes. And I was like, and that's sort of where I saw it the first time.
I mean, I think, these games, this top 8 EGG was like, when I saw the listing, I was like, wow, this is like one of the strongest top 8s for EGG that we've had. And yeah, so it was tough getting here, and I'm glad I at least saw the line, in the final, like, okay, I can do this, and I knew the blockers would get sound, I could give pro green and everything. I thought I was being very clever, but, Bone Crusher, as it's done for so long, just ruins people's days. But, good games. Was a fun tournament, and looking ahead to the paper series.
Fantastic.
Yeah, same here. I think I'm preparing for the Pioneer. I got like 2 decks here next to my laptop for the Pioneer qualifier this Saturday. So yeah, looking forward to that. And I think, thanks, Ryan. Good games. I think I couldn't see you make any mistakes. I probably, in my mind, I don't know, the glass casket play, that may have been a mistake. I think if it was me, I probably would have glass casket just so that you don't lose on the card advantage because you're worried about a beast coming. But if I keep drawing cards, I will eventually draw a beast. But if I don't draw cards, it might take me 3-4 turns longer to draw the beast. I think if I just from everything, I probably would say that's probably the one thing that I think you probably could have done better. But I get your logic for waiting for something bigger. But I'm just thinking I will draw bigger things because you allow me to draw extra cards. So I don't know. Maybe. Cool.
Cora, thank you so much for joining us. It's always great having you on, and also for keeping your data partner relevant. So Zoe, also thank you for providing so much cool stuff that Cora was able to give to us tonight. It was fantastic. I think we'll definitely bring the twixt of you together again for one of these. Theuns,
It'll be great.
Congratulations once more, Ryan. Good game, man. Sorry about the loss, but it's 10 o'clock, and that is pretty much all the time we have for this evening. So Cora, thank you so much for joining us, and everybody in chat, thank you so much for watching and for being here, and to Keraan, thanks so much. And don't forget, we've got a lot of cool content that's also out there on Unplug Yourself on their website. We've got Cora's deck lists from some of the Commander decks. We've got Ricardo's deck list should be going up soon. The deck sort of review and upgrade guide, as well as Yolanda's and Ryan from Potch, his is up there as well. But in the meantime, we'll be back on Wednesday with some Tribal Commander. We're going Tribal again on Command this on Wednesday night. Should be a lot of fun. I'm seeing lots of elves already, so that should be interesting. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you all on the flip side. So stay healthy, stay safe, and peace, y'all. Good night, everybody.
Good night.